Hey guys, it's Miller here and welcome to another episode. So today I've got a friend of mine, a mentor, whose name is Wade Alters, who's an executive coach, a business consultant and relationship specialist. And really from what I can see, is helping men create their perfect lifestyle, whether that's growing their own business or their side hustle or, helping them understand social dynamics and communicating with women and persuasion to kind of help them find, their ideal woman and kind of keep her. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Awesome, mate. So yeah, I guess just where we'll start is maybe if you can just kind of tell the guys, your story, what's kind of led you to this point.
The story, yeah. I always try to be like, okay, let's not have that be half an hour here. But not that, I mean, we all have long stories, I'm sure. But for me, I've been coaching for since 2007. So whatever that is, about 13, 14 years at this point. And to get into where it came from, my parents were high school sweethearts. And so when I was 16, I found my high school sweetheart. And, we just follow the model of our parents. And so super small little school in Wisconsin in America. And from 16 to 24, I had the same girlfriend and just completely oblivious to the idea of, anything about dating. Like I didn't even know people were going to bars and hooking up and stuff like that. Where I was from, it was very just sort of conservative. You start a family, the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, stuff like that. And so all of a sudden, when we broke up at age 24, I really was starting from scratch. Like I didn't middle school, high school, the whole time I kind of was like, well, I got my wife. I don't need to think about this. And so I think because of that extreme, it led to me really going to the other extreme, which was finding out about the whole industry online. I'm not sure how much you talk about this stuff related to kind of like success with women and kind of, meeting girls and the mechanics of all that stuff. And so I was just like, whoa, where did this come from? And like I said, I was just surprised. I thought you just went to the bar to get drunk. And so I'm like, wow, you can meet women here and you can actually, take them home even or date them or what? Like, it was like opening up Pandora's box. And at that age, for me, it was just the thing I needed really. And kind of, I let everything else slip away. Like I was in graduate school and stuff like that. And so found this company and took a program with them about how to kind of, it was a boot camp. You go out on the weekend. And after that, I just fell in love with it, that I became one of their instructors. And so what I did was basically travel around over 42 countries, I think it was, and did these weekend seminars. We'd run a seminar where I'd help guys really explain what attraction is, masculine polarity, dominance, all that, the inner game side of things to become an attractive man. And then unlike, I think, other self-development stuff is actually then we go out and do it. So whether that was in, the hottest nightclubs in Stockholm or, the beaches in Rio de Janeiro, and just seeing kind of what worked through all that stuff. Right. And so I think that's probably a lot of the stuff we'll get in here today. So I did that for probably 5 to 6 years, was on the road 300 days a year. And then through that process was like, if I want to get off the road, I had to learn business. And so shifted more to be kind of like a holistic coach, to where rounding out things of being successful with, the online marketing stuff. And some of that, I do some consulting and copywriting projects there. But then my other big passion is the self-development stuff. And so I spent a lot of time really, apprenticing with a clinical hypnotherapist and diving into neuro-linguistic programming and NLP for a long time. Just read all the books that everyone should read. And so, like I said, I think you're spot on. It's kind of a mixture of, life coach for entrepreneurs, relationship advisor and specialist, and then doing a few marketing consulting gigs as well. So that's kind of like the fast version there of 12 years of work. So
Yeah, it's crazy how you can kind of squeeze it all into a little spiel. But I wanted to ask you about kind of that shift from going from being like, a pretty successful kind of dating coach to then doing a completely new, like a new venture, with a rebrand, having a new name and going at it alone, and the kind of the inner game that went along with that, because it would have been a big kind of restart from fresh. And it's like, well, do I trust in my faculties here and that kind of thing? So how did you go with that?
yeah, I mean, I believe that when I was 24, 25 years old, and because I was just so I don't know, excited and passionate about going out and meeting girls, I got pretty good. Like, I'd never done it before. Before I kind of really jumped in, I'd never done it sober. That's another thing I think as well. And so all of a sudden I was working with these guys that were crazy successful in their 30s and 40s. And they're like, dude, you kind of hacked the system here. I thought, I was supposed to work hard and, make all this money and get the power, kind of like, what was that, Scarface? And then you get the girl. And they're like, you just kind of cut straight to the end. And so it was interesting kind of talking to all these very successful people that I should have never talked to, but because I had the skill set of meeting women and they kind of wanted that, I was able to really kind of change my, I really believe your network is your net worth. So a huge shift there. And through that process, it gave me so much self-trust and confidence to say, if I can master this thing, that literally so many guys out there think that they're just dealt a certain deck of cards in life. And this is, I was the same way. I was like, okay, this is where I grew up. This is, the type of person I was in high school. I'm going to go to school for this. And so this is the type of quality. Like I remember I was going to school for become a doctor. And a big part of it was, oh, hey, at least I can get a nurse or something, because that's how I'll be a doctor, and it's noble and it's respected. And I just had no idea that you could kind of change the deck of cards, if we keep on with that analogy there. And so once you're able to crack that sort of code, it just led to anything is possible. And so when I jumped into business, even though there were a lot of initial sort of, beating my head against the wall and frustrations. And like you said, when I was a dating coach, I went by Brad. And because of kind of a falling out with my business partners, I had to explode this $1 million brand with, millions of views on YouTube and start from scratch, which was tough. But, and so, like I said, there was that same frustration, but it was the same frustration that when you go to a super loud nightclub in Berlin where the bass is so loud, your hair is moving and you can't even talk to girls. And I have these clients there that are paying $2,000 and it's a money back guarantee. So if I don't help them do well in that environment, so we're like standing next to the bathroom to try to talk to girls as they come out and stuff like that, which who knows these days, probably can't even get away with that stuff anymore. But it's like, all that stuff, like I said, it just gives you so much confidence to go and dealing with the frustration and the constant rejection and, that where it's like, okay, the only thing that really gets you through is kind of coming back to, okay, what have I done in the past? Okay, this is just one of those other things. I'm not cut from a different cloth. I'm not dealt the cards that I was dealt, whether it's my socioeconomic background or whether it's my looks or whatever it is, so that was like, I think that really carried me through. And I guess, the other thing, it really is having awesome mentors and having people along the way that were like, you're smart, you're hardworking. This looks like it's really got some legs. Like, just keep at it. I remember hearing Andrew Carnegie's biography talks about that, where it's like having somebody that's where you want to be and telling you like, you're on the path, just keep on going. That was definitely another sort of life raft that I had along the way too,
Yeah, I love that. I love that term, no one's cut from a different cloth, because you might see people who are really successful or who are doing the things that you want to be doing and think that they are like massively different to you. And it's not necessarily the case. It's just that they've been more consistent at that path for a longer period of time. And I get that was a big shift for me as well when I saw kind of, other men and fathers who are really happy with their kids, and I was there being like, well, am I a good father? Do I have it in me to be enough to have that same life? And just that internal knowing of, well, he's not that different to me. It gave me kind of some hope and some light to being able to move through that. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain here on, a little bit of dating stuff, because I guess a big maybe insecurity or big concern for single dads who maybe go through a breakup is that, they'll be looked at like they're maybe damaged goods, that they come with baggage, and so them getting back into the dating world is scary, right? Because they're like maybe fear of judgment, not being good enough, that, their ideal. This is literally the narrative I had in my head. I was like, one day, now that I'm a single dad, I'm going to meet the woman of my dreams and she's going to say, sorry, you've got kids. And that was just the internal thing that I had going on. So what, I guess, advice would you have for single dads who are maybe going through that? Like, that doesn't matter. What do they look for?
It totally matters. You're screwed. Your life is over. Everything's different. Uh, yeah, I have a friend. Actually, he's kind of got a similar. I don't say the whole story of you, but he's 26 now, and he had twins as well, and kind of
Oh,
he's
wow.
back in West Hollywood now, like banging the guns and kind of getting back out, being single again. After like getting divorced and everything.
Mm,
And so it's cool, kind of like walking him through some of the stuff or having these playing with some of these mindsets and things like that. I think the biggest one is I was just talking with a client yesterday. It's a super classic book, and I can't believe it took me until like a year or two ago to actually finally read it. Was the Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus? Have you
mm.
ever read that one?
I haven't read it. I've heard about it though.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like when you're in the whole. I mean, of course, like the David Datas and
Mm,
those ones. Everyone reads those ones, and this one's like, oh, I'm not married for 30 years. I don't need to read this one. But it was actually really good of breaking down how men, and this is so cliche and it's so stereotypical, but it's something that needs to be hammered into every man, is that men are logical, women are emotional. And so I remember for me having no clue whatsoever about what women were attracted to, breaking up with my girlfriend for the first time. I remember specifically going to a spa and getting like a facial because I thought like it was all about looks and stuff. And I'm like, what does a facial even do as a man? Like you can't even see that shit. It doesn't matter anyway, right?
yeah.
And so what we do is and this is for anything in life, kind of the NLP concept of we mind read other people. And so we see their actions and we filter them through our headspace.
Mm,
And so as a man, because we're logical, we go, okay, if I was a woman, or even for a guy like seeing with a girl, like, oh, it's damaged goods sort of thing. And what you're doing there is you're logically thinking about, okay, if I look at my resume and I tabulate all the different pieces, am I a catch to a woman?
mm,
And what you learn from, or what I've learned from tens of thousands of nights, not nights, but hours in nightclubs and seeing literally this sort of National Geographic, what is attraction play out again and again and again. And in Las Vegas nightclubs and just the most extreme environments of seeing like primal instinct and attractiveness, is that what women respond to is high status behavior and just being cool and being fun. So what I mean by cool is just being sure of yourself, being centered, and like having a good time. And so I'm sure I know you've heard this concept, the whole like being a man who can like walk through the world with ease. And
mm.
so it's just that whole, if you got your shit together, you're probably not that stressed out. And you're probably just like, yeah, life is pretty good. Like, hey, how's it going? Hey, what's up? Come over here. And you just talking and stuff like that. And, there's other sides of this too, where sometimes, and I'm sure there's people listening to this, especially if you're like a doctor or you got some sort of respected profession, what happens all the time, you're like, man, every time they find out I'm a doctor, all of a sudden they're like, no, I'm not going to give it up. Like, I'm not that type of girl and stuff like that. And they're always confused. And they're like, what is this? I'm like, number one, you're probably the one bringing it up. So even thinking about the kids and the family stuff, it's in your head. And somehow you're like, why does it always come up in the conversation? And it's
Mm,
like, you're the one doing that. Versus what is the goal when people go out? And I'm not even talking about if you're just meeting girls at a bar or ladies at a bar or something like that, but I'm talking about the first date or social gathering, whatever that, or even at like a Starbucks, the idea of socializing, and they call it vibing, where it's creating a specific vibe of just playfulness, fun, lightheartedness, easiness. If you're coming from that place, by the time the conversation comes up of like, do you have kids, whatever that sort of conversation is, it's like by then you're already in, and the thing
mm.
is by then she already likes you. And again, it's more of a non-issue than you would think. It's like, again, because men were so logical, we think, oh, it's like my height compared to her height, or the car that I drive, or like how much money I have in the bank. And it's so much more of like, I mean, if you look at these sort of instinctual examples, it's like, the girl who ends up with like the weird bartender dude because he's just a badass and like he's the leader of who he gives drinks to next. And so all of a sudden she sees those alpha qualities. Or that like the extreme example of like the Denny's manager who hooks up with all the cute girls working at Denny's and stuff like that. And all of a sudden you come in, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor and it doesn't matter if you have the perfect resume, because they just see him and he's being the leader and he's talking to people and moving them around. And so again, it comes back to those high status behaviors.
Mm.
And being sure of yourself and confidence. That's what they're more into.
Yeah, 100%. And it's kind of that like self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like self-sabotage, it's the more that you hold on to kind of that as being a real issue in your mind, it kind of, leads you to be less confident when you go and talk to someone, and then, you're not exhibiting those behaviors that they actually are looking for. And then you'll be like, oh, well, there it was. There was the reason that, it was because I had kids. I knew it.
Yep.
But really it's more because of, those high status behaviors and that kind of confidence that comes with it. So I guess maybe for those who are listening, if they're struggling with a bit of confidence or, motivation in exhibiting those things, what would be some advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I would say, so my old classic, for me, the concept that I was most known for as a dating coach was the extreme self-love. And so the quote that I always use, Shakespearean quote, is nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And really the extreme way of looking at that is that you can choose whatever sort of view of the situation you want to have. Why not choose one that's empowering versus disempowering? And so if you want to say like, so the example would be, let's say I had my shirt and there was a stain on my shirt. So I could go, oh no, there's a stain on my shirt. This is horrible. What if she sees it? She's going to think I'm a total slob. And then the whole time I'm talking to her, I'm kind of like, oh, I hope she doesn't see the stain. And that all of a sudden is going to lead to disempowering. Like I'm worrying about it. It's wasting bandwidth. You're not even paying attention to what's going on. Versus the way that I started filtering it is I'm like, okay, what is the mindset that I want to have? Or what is the headspace? And so that's the first step, is most people don't even take that sort of proactive response or take a choice. They just go, oh no, I have kids. That's bad. And so boom, I think that's bad, or like society thinks that bad. And you're allowing that sort of frame of reality to dictate the situation versus going like, what I would do is choose, no matter what it was, especially things you can't change, like your family, I'm going to use that and have the filter be something empowering. And so I would literally go through the examples of like, so like this, like, let's say I got my water here. So it's like sparkling water with like a splash of OJ. And it's like a crystal glass. I'm like, I'm such a fucking badass drinking out of crystal. I'm so like healthy. It's fucking sparkling water and shit. Like it's so fucking cool, And I'm like, it's just water. Like, and I can choose to have it be like something that empowers me or disempowers me. And so it's the same thing with kids. It could be, and I don't know what that frame would be, but it's like, literally I'll have guys sit there with like a list and write it out of like, I'm fucking super, high integrity. And, I'm a supportive father. And it's like, I care about, I'm not going to beat her. Like, look at me, I have kids. Like, it's like, there's actually a lot of benefits to that as well. Like, look, I've done it once before. I'm not sterile. Like, there's another good one, right? Like all of them, there's like all these things to be like, I'm a fucking badass. And I'm like, sorry if I'm swearing too much here.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. And so it's like, you want to choose. So the frame I always said is like, I'm awesome. I'm the shit. I'm the man. I'm the boss. And then when you take that frame of reality and then you go, everything that you do, you want to filter through that frame versus the opposite, where you let society dictate the frame, or you let the girl. Because what is her frame going to be? It's always going to be like, I'm the shit. I'm the hot one. I got in before you. You should be buying me a drink. And so if you let that frame push you over, it's going to happen. Versus being, again, proactive and just reinforcing it. And then using all the ammo that you got, like I said, create a list of 50 reasons about why the fact that you have kids, if that's the specific sort of hiccup, why that's actually a good thing. And then and again, what'll happen, she's like, ew, you have kids? You're like, yeah, I got fucking kids. Like, yeah, they're awesome. Like, look at them. They're so cute. Not that you want to do that. Like, there's a time and place for that. But I mean, the age one is another great example, like where I'd be 30 years old and going up to 18-year-olds and like, you're old. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so old. I'm like your daddy, old man. And they're like, and you can see it. They go from like, they had their frame, but after a while it just flips, and every so often it doesn't. Sometimes I remember a specific time, like Norway, some girls like, no, you're old, get away. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't work every time. But in general, what happens is just guys are they're not even deliberate about this. And they're just letting society, other people, the girl dictate the reality versus being proactive about it.
Yeah, I love that. One that I actually use for myself, which is, I think it's even my mum spoke to me about it. She's like, well, now any woman that you would be with, like, she's going to be a high value woman because low value women would say bye to you if they knew you had kids, if that makes sense, right? So I'm like, yeah, that's right. It's a fucking filter. So I can find the perfect woman. The perfect woman who will be with me will love kids, and she'll love the fact that I have kids, you know? And if she doesn't, then man, she's not the one for me. You know, like I know who I am. I'm on my path. I'm moving forward. And, you know, it's assumed that you're a man of value. So that was something that I definitely held on to if you're listening. Another thing I wanted to ask about your opinion on is just how to get through kind of a difficult breakup. I know you said there you're, you know, with your high school sweetheart for many years and stuff. And how did you kind of get through that, or how were you able to move past it, or, you know, how do you help other guys who are going through tough breakups?
Yeah. I was had this conversation last week with someone. I was like, man, I've had this conversation a lot, but it's like, the way that I really view it. So first and foremost is basically, if you look at your sort of mind and your thoughts washing around in there, it's like you have this crystal clear mountain lake. So just like this beautifully crystal clear, it's completely, you can see all the way to the bottom, 100 feet down, things like that. But at the bottom, there's this sort of white silt. And so what happens is every time you have any sort of interaction, you know, what it leads to is, or any trigger whatsoever, what it leads to is all of a sudden it murkies up the water. And so it's murking up the water, and stuff like that. And so I get it. It's more of a challenge when you have like a connection of children and stuff like that, but you can't stack the cards against yourself. And so you have to think of, how can I remove as many triggers as possible? And also a lot of it's just like short term too. You know, so people are like, oh, I'm still going to try to be friends and I'm still going to do that. It's like, okay, you can do that, but wait 6 months. Like for the first 6 months, it really just has to be, how can I cut as much connection or attachment to this person as possible? Because all it is just re-murking up the water. It's like you're stomping on the silt again. And it's like that lake is getting clear. Oh, nope, now it's cloudy again. And that's clouding your judgment and things like that, right? And so much what it is. And another piece that I learned from the NLP world is just the concept of the pattern interrupt. And so this is classic, you know, Tony Robbins kind of made this famous too, but I feel like people don't really have a granular view of it. And so what it is that every single thing that we do is just trigger, response, trigger, response. Some of these things are, you know, subconscious and they're completely internalized. So all of a sudden it's like, I'm hungry, I go to the fridge. You don't even remember the hunger. You're just like, I'm at the fridge, and you're not even thinking about it. So it's totally internalized. But what happens is like, there's a trigger and response that's at play when you have that sort of pain or sadness around the breakup. And so if you can go in and just become aware of what the trigger is, like I said, if you can remove it, that's the best. But if you can't remove it, at least just break it and become aware of it. And so as an example of this, I remember for myself when I was getting over like the really intense breakup, or the, you know, 8-year relationship, is that all of a sudden I just randomly get sad for like random reasons. And so I'd be, you know, I'd look at a tree and I'd be like, oh, we walked past a tree once, and I get sad or something like that. Or I'd be at the airport and I didn't even know why I was sad. And I realized like what the thought was like, I saw kids and I'm like, we'll never have kids together and stuff like that. And so all of a sudden anything was triggering me to kind of lead to sadness. And so the first step was, once I became aware of that, I was like, hold on a second. It's a tree. That's weird. That's weird that I just had that thought. And what happens is when you bring it from the subconscious into the conscious awareness, automatically it starts losing its power over you. And so another big thing that always helps me, or that I tell clients, is that they always have momentum. And so as that pattern runs of like the sadness, the longer you self-indulge, the more you stick in it, the more you stay with it, the harder it is to come out of it. It's like, you know, when you get really angry and you're like, fuck, I'm so fucking angry. And all of a sudden it gets worse and you're like, oh, I'm trying to calm down. And you're trying to calm down and everything. Like, it's like, whoa, dude, chill out. Versus if that anger kicks in, you're like, whoa, hold on. So the faster you catch the pattern kicking in, the easier it is to resolve it. And so I think that's another thing where like you almost want to self-indulge and you all want to have like a little pity party, but I want to kind of plant that seed of the next time that happens, you go, oh no, it feels good to be, hold on. The longer I indulge in this, the longer it's going to take me to get out of it. And so I might as well just decide to get out of it. It feels cool. It feels good. It's familiar. Great. And so that's like, and so with the pattern interrupt, it's just, what happens is the awareness gets faster and faster and faster. So when all of a sudden it triggers, whatever the trigger is, just be like, oh, that was the trigger. Hold on, take a second, take a deep breath. And then ask a better question. Because the question you're probably asking is, why did she do that to me? Why is my life so fucked up? I mean, for me, my background's more with working with entrepreneurs and stuff. And so let's say they're really stressed out about their business. They're like, what if it all fails? What if I end up losing all the money and I go bankrupt? And it's like, well, probably asking a question like that would lead to a lot of stress, and probably a question of continually asking yourself, why did she do that? Why did this happen to me? And I'm sure you could list off 10 more that you hear all the time. Like that question only leads to shining a light on shit that sucks versus, the classic sort of just, what's the best thing for me to do right now? And maybe it's literally taking a shower, maybe whatever. And having all these things to, once you've interrupted the pattern, you have to fill the void, fill the vacuum. And so it's like having a bunch of things at your disposal to fill that void. But also, I think, like I said, most importantly is asking a better question. Like, what's awesome about this? What did I learn from that? How's this going to make me an even better father? How's the next, and like when it comes to relationships, like the next one is always better as long as you keep moving forward and you keep working on yourself and you learn from it. Like you're only going to be more centered, more sure of yourself, know what you want. And I guess also realizing being a boyfriend or a husband, it's like a skill set. And so I think that's what going back to being cut from the different cloth stuff we talked about before, is that, you're just doing what your parents did. And so cool, all of a sudden you made a mistake. We all make mistakes on some level. Are you going to have that be like, woe is me for the rest of your life? Or are you going to go, okay, what can I learn from this lesson so that I don't do this again? Awesome. Now let's keep moving forward. And the next one will be better if you learn from these things, So I could rant for that today's, but
I think it's really, really important, right? Because it's like kind of peeling back the layers of the self-awareness onion in a way. You like it, it's constantly having those moments where it's just like, okay, why am I doing this? What could I have done better in the future? What mistakes did I make? What do I need to make sure I'm not doing again in the future? And it's as long as you're kind of asking those questions, gradually over time, you're going to improve. But where many people go wrong is I guess that they're just not even asking those questions. They're constantly stuck in that rut and they're just the question is, why does bad shit keep happening? And it's not like focused towards their behavior in a way. Awesome, mate. Awesome. So one of my last questions here, mate, is, I know you work with men a lot around their business, their side hustle and that kind of a thing. For any men that are listening who are maybe questioning like maybe their purpose in life, like what is it that I should be doing? Maybe I'm not happy in my job. I'm not happy with the way things are going right now. What advice would you have to men who are like, what is my purpose? How should I be thinking about this?
Yeah. I definitely, a lot of clients, their initial reason that's why they're coming is that specific thing. And they're just like, something just isn't fulfilling, or, I don't feel like I'm on my path. And I remember reading The Way of the Superior Man and being like, he's like, be on your path. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And so I think they have a word in NLP, they call it a anomalization. And so what that is basically, can I stick it in a wheelbarrow? Can I hold it in my hand? An apple, we all know what an apple is. Like justice or freedom or your purpose, that means something different to each person. So it's like, how can we go, instead of being like, I don't have a purpose, how can we kind of move it into something tangible? For me, happiness and fulfillment, it all comes down to the values. And so what is happiness? It's living in alignment with your values. What is fulfillment? It's when you're growing in each area that you value. So it's growing in your values. But what does that presuppose? You know what you value. And so then it leads to, well, what do I value? Growing up, is this just because my dad was like this and now I'm like this too? Or is this actually something I do? And the only way to really figure that out is to go make mistakes. It's through trial and error. And so the way that I say, the only way you can fail is living in the gray zone. The only way you can fail is by wondering what if, or just going, oh, I should think, you got that job and you're like, I don't really like this job, but and I have this idea for this thing, and what if it fails? is failure. But if you go and you completely commit, that's what changes everything. You know, I tell the story a lot of when I was in my late 20s. I'm like, okay, something needs to change here. I'm kind of said everything I needed to say as a dating coach. From there, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, what is it? I'm like, okay, I know I'm a hard worker. You know, I know I'm pretty smart. And so I know I can just, if I just had the idea, I could take it and I could run with it. And what I realized is that the idea never comes. Like, you create the idea. That's why I say success, it's always like a sculpture. It's not a painting. So it's not like you add more to it. It's like you carve shit out and you go, oh, that's not it. Oh, that's not it. And so the faster you can do that, in like the Silicon Valley sort of startup world, they call it fail fast forward. And so how can I fail faster? How can I get there even faster? And so taking that much more objective view, I think the issue that most people have is that they're stuck in that fear of failure. They're you know, stuck of, oh no, what if everyone sees me? And you're already kind of dealing with this, oh no, I got egg on my face because my family life is not as cookie cutter perfect as I expected. I can't do the same thing in business. And now I have this added responsibility of kids too. Oh shit. And so because of that, it just leads to that, you know, a more of a security view of things. And so the only way to really, like I said, the biggest thing, if you want, whether it's what, and so I'm kind of going off on all different tangents here, but really when it comes to the values, you want to take each one and kind of dial it in and go, let's say health. What specifically do I want with health? Is it bodybuilding? Is it strength? Is it, you know, my physique? Is it to feel high energy? And go down that rabbit hole, commit to something and go, okay, actually, I need to find my own flavor for health. Then do the same thing with relationships. Maybe you got into, you thought it was marriage, you thought it was certain things there. Okay, maybe actually that wasn't the exact way that I wanted it. And I think it's also important to say, like when it comes to, especially with women, it's like it's never one person. It's like, no, the value is like Sarah. And it's like, now that I don't have Sarah, I'm a failure. It's like, no, it's like women in general. And how do I continue to get better and better at that? And the skill set of being a dad and being a husband and being a boyfriend and things like that. And then the same thing when it comes to your financial and career side of things. It's like, it's not a failure if you go into business and then you end it and go, okay, that wasn't for me. As long as you learn from that, and now you can have that clear head and go back and I've had multiple clients where they go back to work and they actually finally appreciate it so much more because they've cleared out that whole idea of like, oh, I think I'm going to be an entrepreneur. They go do it and they're like, whoa, actually, no, this is not what I expected it to be. That's not a failure. That's a good thing because you're clarifying what your values are. And so every day, if you feel like you don't have that sense of purpose, just go, how can every day I get more clear on every one of these little values? And I guarantee you just automatically, you're going to be like, whoa, I actually do feel like I'm moving forward. I feel like I'm growing, and the happiness and the fulfillment just go up because you start seeing the growth potential. And so that is what leads to kind of being on the path.
Yeah, I love that. So true. So true, guys. And if you're listening, yeah, really take note of that because it's really, really important because even if you try something and then it doesn't work out, like it's not a failure, you know, it's just, you're working out things that you don't like. It's actually moving you towards something. So I think that's a really big distinction. So one thing I wanted to ask you, mate, about, you know, being in a relationship as you are, how do you manage your work-life balance? So I know for many like single dads, right, a big reason of maybe why they've gone through the breakup is because, you know, the partner's like, well, you're never here. You're working too much. You know, whenever you're home, you're not present. You know, you're always like worrying about some other shit. And, you know, then they go through the breakup and they're like, oh, far out. Like, I understand how serious she was now. So maybe moving forward, you know, what's something to look out for? What's a good way to manage their work-life balance?
Yeah, you know, I've heard a lot related to, oh, there is no work-life balance, or, you know, just so many different sides of it. The way that I kind of view it or teach it is that, again, it really goes back to kind of like looking, let's say we go back to the values and taking each one and putting it on a scale of 1 to 10. So I always feel you have kind of 2 or 3 core things going on. Let's say one is your career. Another one's, let's say, the family, and making sure to separate the rest of the family from your actual partner and going, okay, if I have these on a scale of 1 to 10, where are each of these at? And so, I mean, even kind of a personal example for myself is that in a couple of weeks, I think it's next weekend or 2 weeks, there's this sort of, you know, internet marketing event nearby, and there's all these crazy successful people coming in town. And my friend was like, I'm putting on this little event at a mansion up in the Hollywood Hills. There's gonna be like 15 people you need to meet. And I was like, dude, I literally 2 days ago planned a ski trip with my girlfriend and like another couple on that exact same weekend. And so the thought pops up of like, literally this, for me, my business is number one. She knows that. And this would be so huge of a step forward for that. But the thing is right now business is going great. I have so much momentum there. Everything is awesome there. If I look at that on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say that's at an 8 out of 10. Whereas the relationship is like, her moving out, we moved out to LA, Santa Monica here 6-7 months ago. And it's, it's really been me helping support her, but she's stressed, she doesn't have a lot of friends yet and things like that. And I'm like, this is going to move our relationship. Let's say if we're at like a 6 or a 7, I would much rather, I need to focus on this because that needs to get up to an 8 or 9 as well. And it's like, shit, there's always going to be another opportunity to do the business event. I think what happens is that's what we get so one side, especially as men, we're so like linear. We're like, okay, but the thing is if I do that event, then we can get a nicer place and then we have more money. And so all those financial stresses will be gone and that'll be better for the relationship. She doesn't see that side of it. Right. So it's like, you got to be one, like great books, like the 5 love languages, really knowing what her specific language is. I think that's another one that's helped us a lot, is really being, and with clients all the time. It's like, okay, I prefer, acts of service. So if she makes me dinner, that's great. But if I try to do that for her, it doesn't really matter. What does she need? Quality of time. And so I make sure to kind of even plop it in the calendar of going, I need to make sure once a week we have time set aside for this quality time stuff. It's weird for me that she needs this, but it's like, hey, I guess she needs it, so I'm going to do it for her and things like that. Right. And I think the third and final thing I'd say with this is the shift for me, and what a lot of guys that I've talked to really like, is just this idea of the power couple. So it's like, and making sure she's on the same wavelength with that too. And just being like, hey, we're going to take over the world together. And so a lot of times I think what men we do, if we go with the sort of like caveman view of things, we're like, okay, you stay here, you hang with the kids. I'm going to go kill the wildebeest and I'm going to bring that wildebeest back. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I did this shit for the family. And so that part of it is cool. But the thing is nowadays maybe, and maybe this is different than how it used to be, bring her as the power couple, have her help you with the strategy. And so it's kind of like, even just the difference, little shift is going, hey, here's the map. And I think the wildebeest is over here. So I'm going to go do this. You think that's a good idea? Like, okay, I'm going to go get that wildebeest. So you can't come along, but I want you to know that we're on the same page here. This is where we're going to go. This is what we're going to do. And then cool. So you're going to be able to stay with kids. Is that cool? I'll make sure that this only takes 3 days maximum. Otherwise XYZ. And so now it's like a collaborative thing where you're doing this together. Whereas I think a lot of times us men, we're just like, we get all isolated and we're like, things aren't good. I'm just going to commit to the work and kind of do that more. And it's like, it's for us though. Like she needs to realize it's for us. It's like, how the hell is she going to realize that if you don't have that conversation? And so, like I said, I think having that more collaborative approach to things and being open to feedback too. Again, like it's power couple. It's not just like whatever, something like a codependent relationship or a independent, isolated. It's that interdependent where it's like 1 + 1 = 100. Where when you guys are together, you're better than you could be by yourselves. And I think that would be, I think a big misstep people have is they just try to be too independent at times as well. So.
Yeah, massive. Awesome, mate. Well, thanks for jumping on here. Really, really awesome insights into kind of relationships and that kind of thing. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'd say the main 2 places lately that I've been is either just weightalters.com for the website. And then the other one would be Instagram, probably is @weightalters as well. So there you'll see we do podcast episodes, stuff like that. But I think if you get on either one of those places, you'll see all the magic taking place. So.
Beautiful. Awesome, guys. Well, go and check out Wade's stuff. He's got a lot of awesome content. And yeah, it's really, really helped me on my journey as well. So thank you for jumping on today, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.